right, we'll go ahead and call this meeting of the Bidwell Park and Playground Commission to order. Can I get the roll call?
Of course. Commissioner O'Hare.
Here.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Present.
Commissioner McReynolds.
Here.
Commissioner Latz. Absent. Commissioner Redmond.
Here.
And Commissioner Stoller.
Here. Yes, thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to item 1.3, the special recognition from the Butte County Sheriff's Alternative Custody Program.
Don't be shy. Good evening, Senior Ranger Lisa Barge. We are here tonight to acknowledge the contribution of the Butte County Sheriff's ACS program to the Park Division. I'd like to introduce the people on my right, starting with Sheriff Corey Honey, Correctional Deputy Robert Cooley, excuse me, Sergeant Cooley, and Correctional Deputy Kevin Tuck. All right. The relationship with the program began out of a desire several years ago to keep Caper Acres and our restrooms open during the week due to staffing shortages in the park. More recently, the ACS program has expanded to include morning cleanups of City Plaza, Children's Park, and Bidwell Bowl Amphitheater. In addition to the cleaning and janitorial functions, we've received help from ACS SWAP on numerous vegetation clearance projects, such as the recent, just last year, Bidwell Bowl Children's Park Sightline Project. We did the same thing on the Humboldt corridor between Orient and Cypress, and brush clearance on 10 Mile House Road so we could get our vehicles down safely. Most notable, especially to park rangers, has been the labor provided by ACS for encampment cleanups along the creeks and greenways. Many years ago, the city started these cleanups along the creeks on a monthly basis, and unfortunately today, attention is needed on a weekly basis. Their can-do attitude has helped us immensely, and they have happily stepped up to help us keep our creeks and our greenways clean. And just from the beginning of this year, from January to now, ACS has logged 260 hours cleaning 88 camps, resulting in 229 yards of refuse diverted from our creeks and our greenways. So we have a big collective thank you for your dedication and efforts in assisting the Park Division in keeping our creeks and our greenways clean. We hope that this opportunity and this relationship continues as we go forward. So we have a little plaque for you for your dedication and cleanup efforts to Chico Parks and Greenways and Waterways. Thank you very much. Thank you.
If I could just make a few brief comments, and first off, thank you very much. We certainly appreciate the recognition. Just by way of a little history, just so you're aware, Butte County Sheriff's ACS stands for Alternative Custody Supervision Program. It was one of the programs that we put in place in response to Assembly Bill 109, and it allows us to take offenders out of custody, supervise them through the program, and provide them with our alternatives to incarceration that include them building job skills and paying their debt to society, so to speak, by doing work within the parks so that we can all enjoy it. It's been a hugely successful program, and that's due in large part to the two gentlemen that you see right here, Deputy Tuck, Sergeant Cooley, as well as the other deputies assigned to the program. We have lots of work crews out in the community doing a lot of great work. And it's certainly my desire going forward that we can continue the program so long as we're capable of doing it. So thank you all very, very much. Yep. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Is there any other questions?
Sorry.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Then we'll go ahead and move on to item 1.4, a presentation from one of our Eagle Scouts, or Eagle Scouts
I would like
to be.
to introduce Jacob Liu. Eagle Scout. He's here in the audience, and he's going to talk about his Eagle Scout project of renovation of the Campfire Council Ring.
Good evening. So I'm coming here today to basically make it known to you that I will be renovating the Campfire Council Ring near Cape Breakers during a period of time during the month of June, most likely, as I plan to be able to restore and repair many of the benches that are either broken, missing, or simply have been destroyed in some manner that are in need of replacing. I will be able to provide much needed renovation to this location because it's an area that we can all meet and congregate and hold meetings from where the community can come together and grow. I will be able to do the majority of my fundraising by myself and raise money, additional funds from donors such as the Rotary Club or other local businesses. And I will be able to apply that to buying all the materials and have it all done within just a matter of a few weekends. A preliminary cost estimate I have right now is about $650, and that's given all the materials, supplies, tools, and other necessary needs. With that, I come with simply to have you acknowledge the fact that I'll be doing this and all necessary permits will be acquired and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. We definitely very much appreciate you taking that on as your project. Yes, do you have a question?
Hi.
Hello.
My question to you is, what kind of wood do you think you'll be using for the benches, and why would you be using that kind of wood?
I'm not exactly certain what kind of wood I'm using, but we're planning on using some sort of pressure-treated hardwood that'll last longer than the benches that we have right now. Because the benches that we have right now, we have evidence of people have been either wobbling them out of the position or simply burning them.
Thank you for a detailed response.
So I have a question. Have you already started? Because it looks like the benches tops have been taken off, or they just been destroyed in the last 3 months. Wow. Wow. This is huge what you're doing for the park and for that particular area, and I support you 100%. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Jacob.
Thank you.
All right, with those items out of the way, we'll go ahead and move on to item 2, the consent agenda. Just to remind everyone, we will be doing the same rules as the City Council in terms of speakers. If you'd like to speak on any of the items listed here, please fill out a speaker card. I think they're on the table in the back over there, and you can bring it up to Shane, and we'll make sure that you are heard. So all matters on the consent agenda are to be considered routine and enacted by one motion unless anyone would like to pull an item from the consent agenda. Is there any commission member that would like to pull an item for discussion? Hearing none, is there any member of the public that would like to pull an item for discussion? No speakers? Okay. We will go ahead and I will entertain a motion
I
to
make a
approve the
motion
consent.
to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Who wanted to actually second that? Aaron, okay. Commissioner Haar seconds. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 All opposed, please raise your hand and say no. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, then to item 3, we had no items removed from the consent agenda. Item number 4, notice public hearings, there are none. And then on to item 5 for the regular agenda. 5.1 is the consideration of the Car District's request to waive basic fees for the Spring Jamboree and movies in the park.
Chair Stoller, I'd like to recuse myself for any potential appearance of conflict of interest.
We appreciate that, Commissioner Haar, thank you. Do we have a staff report for this item?
Sure, just a brief staff report. As you know, this is an item that has come before the commission several times, many years. In fact, there's 55 years of the Spring Jamboree, and then also the Movies in the Park. It's been about 14 years that they've had that event. And as our municipal code allows, we are able to possibly waive fees for the basic park fees, which are the reservation and vendor fees, for other public agencies, and that especially if it's a community event. And these two have been a long time community events. So the Chico Area Recreation District requested that the basic park fees be waived again for these two events. And it's before you as a regular agenda item because I would like to make a couple points. One is the Movies in the Park is actually, they lease the Sycamore Field and it's part of their lease. So really they didn't have to come to us for a permit other than it helps us coordinate activities. And then also the only other item is that because the gate needs to be open longer than the 9 p.m. So that's why it's before you. But as far as the fees, I really don't believe that the fees are warranted in that case because it is part of their lease agreement. They can use that facility as they may, as agreed upon with the lease agreement. But as for the Spring Jamboree, it is in Caper Acres, and so it is something that would have normally generated fees. So that's the only fees that you're seeing before you now is $301 for the reservation and $12 for the two vendors that they anticipate that's going to sell food and drinks at a reduced price for the participants. At the same time, it's before you because I would like to propose that we go ahead, because it's a long-standing community event, that we go ahead and approve the event for both the 2018 and 2019 years. And I believe that Ann Willman, General Manager, is here, room card, if you have any questions from Ann.
Thank you, Linda. Are there any questions from the commission? Oh, okay. Seeing none, do we have any speakers on this item? Okay. We'll go ahead and close it for public comment and bring it back to the commission in that case. I'll entertain a motion if we have no questions.
I'll make a motion to support the approval of the permits and the waiver reservations and vendor fees for Spring Jamboree and Movies in the Park to be held in 2018 and 2019.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and have the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, please raise your hand and say no. Motion passes unanimously. That'll be 4-0. And if we could retrieve Commissioner Haar. All right, we'll move on to item 5.2, the report on the Policy Advisory Committee. We'll go ahead and turn that over either to staff or the chair of that committee, whoever would like to take it. Thank you. Well, don't fight.
As you recall, at the last commission meeting, you had heard recommendations from the Policy Advisory Committee of their meeting held earlier. And one of the items on that recommendation was to possibly discuss closing the lower Bidwell Park earlier than the current 12 o'clock midnight closing time. And again, the municipal code has it set now that most of our parks are closed between midnight and 5 a.m. And again, that's closed to, we close vehicles earlier when the gates close, which are 9 and 7 depending on the season. But it does allow people to be in the park between midnight, up until midnight, and then again at 5 a.m. And this came before you for several reasons. One was when Commissioner Glatz, who's not here right now, was concerned because there's more activity occurring in the 1 mile recreation area. And there was concerns that perhaps maybe if they had the park closed at a different time, that might help deter some of those activities. The committee, you referred this back to the committee at their next meeting on the 14th, and so that someone from the police department could attend that meeting, and they did. We had Commander Aldridge, Billy Aldridge, attend, and their recommendations were that they would prefer that, they would like to see a consistency on all the parks, and that they thought that the 11 p.m. is preferred because they have a shift change in briefings occurring at 10 p.m., so they would prefer to see that the 11 o'clock time be used versus the 10 o'clock. And then also, I just want to make a note that although our municipal code says that Wildwood Park in here, that is actually a card park, it's just we haven't updated our code, but that too is also closed at 11 o'clock, and so is Middle and Upper Park also closed at 11 during the summer. So there is some consistency there that 11 p.m. is a good time that if we did choose to do that. I just want to remind us that right now the only thing on the agenda is the closing of the Lower Park, because that's what was talked about and discussed. But the committee would also like to further look at the other parks and are asking that if the commission desires that we would send that to a future meeting to talk about the other parks and closing those at the similar time of 11 p.m. So that pretty much, one other thing too, even though the park is closed between 11 or midnight, there would still allow people to pass through the park to their destination, especially in Lower Park because it is a bike path as well that gets through there. And then there was discussion about lighting, the need for more lighting in the 1 mile area and particularly the council ring that we were just talked about. So we were asked to look into some more ideas on how we can increase the lighting in the 1 mile to help also in addition to closing the park earlier. And then I think that's it actually, unless I forgot anything, Valerie, or...
That about covers it. So basically, one of the recommendations is to direct staff to consider the cost and feasibility of installing more lighting, and then we talked about potential of cameras and exploring other options as well to try to improve sightlines and security, and as we know, sometimes when light is, less nefarious activities happen there.
I remember when we were talking about arming or not arming park rangers that I believe Police Chief O'Brien said that he wanted to put cameras out there. So maybe that wouldn't be on the park district's budget, but maybe the police could afford that. Just a thought.
That would be an interesting thing to add to looking at the feasibility of it. I think that looking to the police department for some sort of partnership might be a nice gesture and might be a nice way to get funding for it as well.
The 11 o'clock at the park, the card park over there, Wildwood, was that midnight at one point and then it moved to 11 o'clock? Do you know?
Yes, it was midnight 1. That's why it's still listed in the code. And then when it moved to card, they have 11 p.m. I think all your parks are 11 p.m.
And so, do you know, was there a lot of flack because of that change?
I'm not aware, but perhaps Aaron.
Just checking.
So I think this is something that's come up a number of times before about changing the time to midnight. And the only thing I remember about a protest was that some people like to do midnight swimming in the pool. Was there anyone there that brought that up at the meeting or discussed any type of want to continue to have it open past midnight for other than pass-through purposes?
We discussed it, but there was no one that protested it, and according to the police department, there's not that many people there, and felt that the 11 p.m. would be sufficient time.
And the police department, aside from, thought that it would be useful to go an hour earlier rather than the midnight?
Yes.
Rather than 10 o'clock midnight. Okay, thank you.
I had a coach tell me nothing will benefit you after midnight. It was always good advice.
Right.
So from a staffing standpoint, is this legitimate? We can make sure we have bathrooms closed at 11, we make sure we have gates closed at 11. I mean, it's one thing to say we're going to do it, it's another thing to be able to we've gone through that already, and that's feasible for staff.
Yeah, I believe that the gates are closed at 9, and so are the bathrooms, and they're done by private security, so it would be no change for them to have it. It's just, again, the vehicles and the gates and the restrooms would be closed, but people can still be physically in the park during that time.
As far as cameras, yes, and then the other, I guess we'd have to explain a little further and come back to commission with that.
Yes.
Okay.
Just because it was not properly agendized, so we can't make a decision on it this particular meeting. Are there any other questions to staff or committee members? All right, we'll go ahead and open this up if there's any public comment on this item. Okay, we have a public comment. So if you'd like to speak, you can come up to the microphone over here, and you get about 3 minutes. I don't think I have any type of timing device, so if you could attempt to keep it to about 3 minutes, we'll trust you on it.
I was just wondering what the consequences would be for being in the park past 11 o'clock. Like, what would the prosecutions be, I guess?
I believe it's just ticketing, is that correct?
It would, yeah, it would be a citation, just like you would if you had dogs off leash. It would be a municipal code violation.
Okay. Yeah. If the officers were aware that there was negative activity occurring at the 1 mile specifically compared to just like swimming in the pool, what actions would be taken then?
I think it's the same sort of thing. It's citation. If there's, other nefarious activity going on, then that would be the police response to that particular activity rather than that they were in the park.
Okay. And if I may just add, that was one of the comments made by the police department, that it would give them another tool, and if they found that they were doing other things, then they would be able to take the next step if they had that they were doing illegal activities outside of just being in the park after dark, after the closing time, excuse me.
So as someone who does enjoy to go night swimming, especially at 1 mile, in my opinion, I think a viable solution could be having cameras that are active, especially during the night times, and keeping the hours to midnight, even though you guys might not be able to do that, but because I know there are a lot of people who like to enjoy the park at midnight, but the surveillance could definitely benefit the community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other member of the public like to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close this item to public comment and bring it back to the commission for further discussion. So the way we have it right now, I think it's pretty consistent. If someone wants to make a motion to approve all the recommendations, we can go for that. And if that requires further discussion on any individual one, we can maybe break it down if need be.
If it's all one motion, I have a trouble with the other on the cameras and other, because if the other is what was it, noise?
Are you talking about the noise deterring?
Yeah, the noise
device?
Deterrent.
Yeah, that wasn't really a recommendation. It was a suggestion by a community member in the audience. But I think right now it's just before you lighting. But I think I'm hearing you also want to add cameras to maybe that motion, it sounds like.
To add what? I'm sorry?
Cameras. It sounds like right now it's just lighting, but it sounds like maybe you want to add cameras to the motion, to that particular one.
So, I mean, is noise deterrent another thing that should be looked into? I'm afraid I'm not really sure what a noise deterrent system.
Well, I want to know if I'm voting on approving going ahead with a noise deterrent.
No, they're just doing the cost and feasibility, looking and be coming back to us, correct, with suggestions. Yes. So we have to look at what budget we have, what the options are, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is just looking into costs and items, and if we wanted to look into the noise feasibility as well, that could be added to it, but we're definitely not approving
I'm willing to have
installation
the
or anything
discussion,
like
sure.
that. Okay.
I'll make a motion then that we do the following recommendations. Approve closing Lower Bidwell Park at 11 p.m. to match the closing times of Middle and Upper Bidwell Park. to direct staff to consider the cost and feasibility of installing more lighting as well as potential of cameras in the 1 Mile Recreation Area, Council Ring, and other areas of Lower Bidwell. And we agendize at the future Parks Commission meeting whether to close all city parks and greenways at 11 p.m. for consistency.
I second.
So we have a motion and a second. Was there any further discussion of the motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and take the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 All those opposed, please raise your hand and say no. Motion carries 5-0.
Abstain.
You abstain? Okay, I'm sorry. Any abstains? So that's 4-0-1. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to item 5.3, the consideration of committee assignments and the appointment of a chair and vice chair. Just to be clear on how this works, as a reminder, we will take nominations from the commission of chair to begin with, and then we will ask the nominated person if they would be interested in serving, and they can accept or decline. And then when we will vote on every person who is nominated.
Can we start? Yeah. I'll nominate Commissioner Stoller for chair to continue on.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm honored to accept that nomination. Do we have any other nominations?
No, but I'll second that nomination.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing that we have no other nominations, do we still vote on that?
Yes.
Okay. Do I vote on myself?
Yes, you can. You may.
All right. Well, yeah. I abstain. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. And are there any that would like to abstain? Okay, then I will remain as chair for the next upcoming year, and we'll move on to nominations for vice chair. Do we have any nominations for vice chair?
I'll nominate Commissioner Har.
Commissioner Har, would you be interested in accepting the nomination as vice chair?
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, we have one nomination. Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Elena McReynolds.
Elena, would you like to accept the nomination?
Sure.
Okay, we have two nominations for vice chair. Anything further? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote on both of those nominations. All those in favor of Commissioner Har as vice chair, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 All those not in favor, please say no and raise your hand. All those abstaining? Aye. One abstain. Did you get those? Because I missed some of them.
And is yours a no?
I say no.
Okay, so it sounds like it was, yeah, 3.
Okay, so 3-1-1. Okay. Moving on to the nomination of vice chair for Commissioner McReynolds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
And all those who say no, please say no. No. And those abstaining? Okay, so 2-2-1. So that will put Commissioner Har as our vice chair. Okay. So that will close the regular agenda, and we'll move on to item 6, business from the floor. This is the chance for members of the public to address the commission on any matters that are not already listed on our agenda. Do we have any speakers for business from the floor? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and move on to item 7, reports. We'll start with the division report from our Park and Natural Resource Manager. though I'm sure it's just if we have any questions on her thorough report.
You know it. You know the drill. That's true. It's just an information item, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
I guess I did want to ask about the new ranger recruitment. So just to be clear, there is a candidate who's just going through background check, and otherwise we're almost there for hiring the ranger?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
How is response to the Upper Park survey going?
So far, we have a little over 1,500 survey responses.
1,500?
1,500, and there's still another 2.5 weeks, so the last day would be on the 16th.
Are we going to be doing another push to get it out there? I'd like to see a lot more.
Yes, in fact, we'll be doing a shout out to our partners and asking them to distribute it through their listservs or just email distributions. We'll also have someone at the farmers market, and we also will have somebody in the Upper Park over the next 2 weeks.
And was it featured on the news by chance at all? Do you know?
The Enterprise Record has written an article about it, which I've been sharing, and a number of businesses have picked it up from my...
And I was interviewed by Action News.
You were? Okay, great. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
We will do another press release saying, hey, last chance, 2 more weeks, kind of thing. So.
Any other questions on the Park Division report? We'll go ahead and move on to item 7.2, the Street Tree Division report.
Thank you, Chair Stoller. So we're very happy to announce that City of Chico is now a Tree City USA for the 34th year in a row. So that's a nice accomplishment for the city and Public Works. So just to quickly mention a couple of other things. So we're currently in process of hiring a senior tree trimmer. We did have interviews, very encouraging candidates, so we're down to the final 3. We'll be inviting those 3 candidates back for field testing very shortly. So we hope to make a final decision very soon. So we're on track for getting the tree crew back to full functionality. So quite excited about that. The next point is today we did submit a concept proposal for a grant for various urban forest activities, and currently it'll be with the city manager for his approval. So if it goes to if we're invited back to submit a full proposal, we'll be all ready to go. So quite exciting. If the concept is approved, we're looking to plant as a minimum 700 trees, 100 of those in the park, the rest of them in the street tree park strip. I've already been using the tips that I was given at the tree committee meetings that we've had. I've pursued a lot of those outreach suggestions that you made, and I've getting a lot of voluntary programs together, and with the help of Shane as well. So it's quite exciting. So we'll find out in about 6 weeks if we're invited to put a full concept proposal, sorry, a full final proposal together. So we have about a 25% chance of being successful. So just looking at the numbers, usually, I think last year they had about 160 applicants, and I think 40 of them were successful. So, but I think we have a pretty strong application. So watch this space. Maybe not next meeting, but the one after that, I'll have more to report on that. And the final thing I want to touch on is one of the trainings that I attended was what we call the Learn at Lunch meeting down in Sacramento, and all the urban foresters in the region and anyone. It's open to the public as well. Anyone that's interested can attend, and they invite various distinguished, learned people who present their research. And so I wanted to put it in this report because the last one was by Professor Bill Sullivan, and I included at the end of his report, the end of our tree report, one of his findings, and it's absolutely amazing that we now have scientific proof that trees raise test scores in kids. Like something we maybe thought might, but kind of voodoo science, like not really being tested, but this professor actually has proof. And what made it more exciting was that the State Division of Architecture sent a representative, and they're interested in using these findings for currently developing the Cal Green Code with a number of things. They're looking at electric vehicles and providing for those in schools, but they're also recognizing that obviously because schools are state, they don't have to abide by any city ordinances, and they really don't really have to abide by anything when it comes to doing their landscaping or any building design. So they're looking to basically try and mandate that they have to provide trees and shade in parking lots, in the open spaces, in the school grounds, much like you would expect a developer to include trees in his designs as well. So it's baby steps, but it's quite encouraging to see that the governor sent people from his office to attend this seminar that is open to tree people like me. So it might be a few years before we see anything come down the pipe from that, but I thought it was quite exciting. So if you haven't had time to read that report I put at the end, it's just a few pages, but take a look at it. It's absolutely amazing the effect that basically the color green has on your ability to reduce stress and increase your focus for learning. So I thought it was pretty cool. So I snuck it in the back of our report this month.
I was wondering about that. I know I only daydream when I can see trees personally, but. Yeah. I had a question in terms of, I'm afraid I don't know what the boundaries are for the shade tree ordinance for parking lots. I was wondering if you could tell me what the rules are for that.
Like within the city limits, you mean?
Yes, yeah. Wait, for what you're drafting a letter for to businesses.
Basically I guess it's easy to answer what is not covered. So basically anything that's state or federal, I think, definitely state, so schools.
No, sorry, this is a different, I'm jumping topics on you.
Oh, sorry.
So for your updates, item C, you mentioned that you're drafting a letter to send to businesses.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misheard you. Right, sure. So with Chico Tree Advocates, with some of their input, they came to the director of building development, because we have ad hoc meetings with him from time to time, with the observation that a lot of businesses have not kept their ordinance requirements, which basically means that after 15 years, a parking lot should attain 50% shade.
Oh, okay.
And they presented to us a study, and it was actually one of our quarterly city manager meetings with various environmental groups. Typically, parking lot shade in Chico, in your average business, varies from 70% right down to like 4%. So it's very hit and miss. So we're currently trying to think of the way forward, like how can we help businesses get to that 50% shade? Because it's actually quite difficult, and this is a nationwide problem. It's not just a Chico problem. But at this stage, I don't want to mention the company names, if that's okay, but we have targeted one or two that we think may be interested in becoming champions on this cause and get their house in order, or their parking lots, and get some more trees planted. And hopefully, the idea is if they do come through, then that'll kind of get the ball rolling, and other businesses will find it harder not to comply, because it's very difficult to actually enforce this ordinance, especially with the amount of time that's passed. So we're looking for voluntary compliance right now. So
yeah, thank you. I was just mostly curious what the ordinance was, so that answered that very thoroughly. Thank you. Were Were there any other questions on the street tree division report?
I was just really blown away by the study, and I started thinking about all of our schools in town, and I don't really think I can think of any that don't have, you know, quite a few trees around the property at least. Right. But are there any that you've seen? Because I don't sit in the classrooms, you know, and
Right. I think...
Four Winds over at the fairgrounds.
There are lots of trees at the fairgrounds. It looks out on this like gigantic oak tree, like the windows on the second story by the library for Four Winds. Yeah, there's lots of trees there.
I would concur with that. Don't need the charter school that's there. I know they have a nice... It's interesting. One of the main thing is that students at least have views out of the window, and not necessarily trees. I mean, obviously, that's my wheelhouse, but just greenery and something scenic to look at. And trees obviously fit the bill, but you know, this professor cited examples where I don't know why, but a lot of teachers choose to black out the windows, much like we have here, and literally give them no view outside at all. So it actually affects their ability to learn. I mean, who knew, right? I didn't know that. So we try and disseminate this to teachers and principals and the Division of State Architecture when they're designing schools, and you know, make sure. I mean, basically, from what I remember, he said that we can change dropout rates by 5%. Now, you imagine the amount of money that we spend trying to keep kids in school. Imagine if we could fix that just by making sure they have scenic green space to look at while they're in those moments when they kind of drift off, that they have something to look at. I don't fully understand how it works, but he has the results to show that something's going on, you know.
Yeah, I think there was a psychology building in one of the colleges that I toured that had no windows at all, and they always said that that was a psychology experiment to see what that would do to students' studies, and I don't think that psychology students did well. All right, if there's nothing else for the street tree division report, we'll go ahead and move on to any verbal report, if there is any.
Yes, I'm embarrassed to say that we missed finishing an item on the agenda that we have to go back to, and that is to talk about the meeting dates as well as the committee assignments. I apologize for not catching. I was too busy trying to catch who was abstaining and voting no.
Yeah, I think I was reading past that.
I apologize for that. So.
If we could start with the dates real quick. I actually have a conflict with the Tuesday meeting. I think is that the March meeting?
Okay, the 29th of May.
I have a board meeting on that same night.
Okay. So we could choose either a day before, or you want to do Wednesday, a day during the week before, or the Wednesday.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
So what he's saying is that the Memorial Day, the May meeting falls on Memorial Day, which is Monday the 28th. He has a conflict on Tuesday the 29th that I had proposed. If we want to propose another date, we could do so either the week before or the following Wednesday.
And Chair, both those days work for me. The earlier, the week before Monday or the Wednesday they're both good for me.
Guess I'll look at my calendar.
So Wednesday would be the 30th, and then if we wanted to do it the Monday before, it'd be the 21st of May, on the week before.
Do you need to look at potential conflicts for the room in terms for any of those dates, or?
It should be okay. We can find.
Okay.
Yeah. Mondays are usually not. It's the Tuesdays and
picture days.
others.
Yeah, I would be fine with either the 30th or do we say the following, which would bring us to the 4th of June?
Either that or the 21st of May. Do you want to do it a week early?
I think the 21st of May would probably be better in terms of, rather than the 4th of June personally, but I mean, that's just to keep the meeting in May. Anyone else have any preferences aside from not the 29th?
So am I hearing the 21st?
I think the 21st, if no one's deciding anything, sounds fine to me, yeah. 21st of May.
May 21st. And then as we have in the past, the December meeting in this case falls on New Year's Eve, and we've usually had it on the 17th, the mid-month of December, so that works for everybody. Okay.
Okay. Of course.
And then the next
is-
item, yeah, excuse me, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. You go.
Is that something we need to vote to approve, or are we okay on that?
I think we had the consensus that that would,
Okay.
yeah.
And then was there another one that you were saying?
I'm sorry, the next one is the committees. My recommendation as staff was that because we're just now starting to have our committees working on projects and for continuing them, if it's agreeable with the commissioners, I'd like to keep the committee makeup and the chair. I'd like to keep the committee makeup the same, but I'm open to any ideas if you'd rather change and switch. All the committees.
All the committees.
Right now, the way the committee makeup is now. So the policy advisory.
Previously, that was
committee-
something that like you and I can discuss, not
Yeah,
necessarily.
so
at a
we could
meeting.
either continue this item for the next meeting so we can talk about it, or do you want to?
Oh, I'm fine with keeping the assignments the same way as I set them.
Yeah,
Though, as Commissioner Redmond points out, it looks like we've got a dual chair on the tree committee, and I would just
Oh.
X myself out.
Sorry,
That's
yeah.
from 2 years ago, I would
Yeah.
assume.
But if the other commissioners would like more time to think about it, we can continue
No,
this.
I think I'm fine with these committee assignments unless there's any commissioner that would like to speak to their different preferences. Okay, yeah, I would go ahead and approve the current committee assignments then.
Thank you. Sorry about the mix-up there.
Anything else for me for that?
I think
Okay.
that's it.
And that's the vision report. So are we able to jump back to adjournment then?
Yep.
Madam Chair, there's a request from the public to go back to business from the floor.
I think since we're jumping around today, that's probably something we can do. Yeah, what?
Do that now then?
Yes, yeah, do that now. I think that's the last thing that we would do then.
Alma?
Thank you. I thought that I would get here in time at 7:05, but my name is Emily Alma, and I am here. I just walked around this morning at the disc golf course up on Highway 32. It's a beautiful place, and it's the first time I was there. But I remember vividly several years ago when this was being discussed at city council meetings, and the passion on both sides. And without having seen the area, I'm just a deep-seated environmentalist, and I knew I could hear what people were saying about the dangers of destroying a beautiful natural area, and feeling very sympathetic to the concerns. And today I saw the area for myself, and I remember back then, those few years ago, feeling like the folks who were promoting the disc golf to be able to stay there and to establish a course there, I felt like they would do anything. They would say anything. I don't know about doing anything. In fact, that was one of my suspicions, that they would say anything in order to have it approved. And City Council approved it, and they went forward with it. And they agreed to a contract that included maintaining the disc golf course and protecting the blue oaks, making sure that there weren't ruts that were happening from erosion, and protecting the trees and protecting the ground around the area, not creating too many paths, and generally keeping it as much as possible in its natural state, understanding that there would be some impact. Well, it turns out that the maintenance has not happened, that the group that agreed that they would do this they're not doing it, which I'm not surprised about at all. And I'm just here to be another voice to say that they probably won't do anything unless they're pushed to do it, and that they signed a contract with the city of Chico to maintain that area. It is a beautiful area. Please take a walk there just to feel the beauty of it, and also to notice the damage that can happen. I understand that yesterday, Sunday, there were 30 cars up there. It's used a lot. And that's great. There's a lot of people really enjoying it. But we need to take care of it. And the city, my understanding is that it's the city's responsibility to hold the group that agreed to the maintenance, to hold them to that. And I'm sure that they won't, because they haven't been. Tree protectors are almost ludicrous. There are these single poles that are about 2.5 inches in diameter in front of some of the blue oak trees, and behind those barriers, there's scars on the trees. There's bruises on the trees where it's clear that they've been hit by the discs. And you can't tell on the little branches how much the branches have been damaged, except that I did see places where the end branches were broken off, and then sometimes were dead, and sometimes with little bits of showing of new life at the end of a broken branch. Anyway, that's, I think I've been pretty clear, and I just want to ask you folks, you're the ones who can make it happen, to hold the group accountable for what they agreed to. And if they can't do it, then maybe the disc golf course needs to be closed. So that's my statement. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments.
Bye-bye.
Do we only have the one comment? Okay. We will go ahead and then move toward adjournment then, if there's nothing else that we have forgotten today. All right, great. Thank you all. We will adjourn to the next regular meeting on March 26th at 6:30. Here or there? I guess we'll find out. Here, in this room.
I said okay, because the volunteer orientation, I'm glad I haven't put anything out yet, because they said that it was supposed to be done. Yeah, you can go on the 22nd, so I'll figure it out.
Have it here.
Yeah. Yeah, you can make it work. What's that? Yeah, I'll think on it. It might be a good way to introduce the collaboration with CARD on our volunteer program. I don't want to confuse anybody either. I'll think on it.
I mean, we could do it here.
Just so we usually do refreshments and all that type of stuff, and I wouldn't want to do that in this building.
We could do it. We could open that. We did it before. I had meetings in here with
When we did the training for, it's just I don't know.
I put them in there when I did my training. That was
Okay.
refreshments in there.
Okay. Okay.
Kind of like we did with Couples too.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Make it work.
Yeah. How many people?
A solid 40, could be as many as 50.
Okay, because this is 80, I think is the last one.
Yeah, I don't want it to be that.